Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Bon matin à tous. Welcome to the latest in a series of special Zoom webinars presented by the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Moncton. My name is John Wishart, and I am CEO of the Chamber. Today, we are very pleased to present Pierre Cléroux, who is the Vice President of Research and Chief Economist with BDC. And Pierre will talk to us in a few minutes on the topic of forging the way forward, how entrepreneurs are adapting to the pandemic. And isn't adaptation one of the key words for 2020? I like to call this the year of Darwin. We need to evolve and adapt as both individuals and business people. C'est les difficiles réalités à lesquelles la communauté d'affaires doit faire face et nous sommes chanceux de pouvoir compter sur la connaissance de Pierre pour mener nos discussions aujourd'hui. Before we get to the formal introduction, I want to thank BDC for their ongoing and generous support for both the Chamber and the Greater Moncton business community, both corporately and individually through the staff at BDC's Moncton Business Centre. BDC has been there for us and for you during these trying times. Now, we invited our registrants to submit questions for Pierre prior to today's event, and you have done so thank you for that. Mais vous pouvez encore soumettre vos questions en utilisant les fonctions chat dans le bas de votre écran Zoom. Nous terminerons la séance avec une période de questions et réponses. So feel free at any time during the presentation to write your question to Pierre using the chat function at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will try to get to as many questions as time allows. Now, I would like to introduce Nadine Leblanc, the manager of the Moncton BDC Business Centre, to formally introduce Pierre. Nadine has more than 20 years of banking experience working with small and medium-sized enterprises. Elle a obtenu son baccalauréat en administration des affaires, major en finance de l'Université de Moncton. In 2003, Nadine joined BDC as an account manager, and since that time has held various leadership positions within the organization. In her current role as the manager for the Business Centre, she leads a team that is dedicated to support local entrepreneurs with financing and advice in order to help them achieve their goals and dreams. And as I mentioned, that's never been more important than in 2020. So Nadine, I will turn the proceedings over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with us this morning. As John mentioned, my name is Nadine Leblanc, and I am the Business Center Manager for Small Business in New Brunswick and PI. It's a pleasure to be here today on behalf of our BDC team. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the great work done by the GMCC. Thank you to John, Mireille, Xavier, and the team for hosting us and presenting today's webinar. I also appreciate the Chamber's strong support for small business in this challenging year. Entrepreneurs are the engine of our economy. They build businesses, create jobs, and make a difference in their communities every single day. BDC is the bank for Canadian entrepreneurs. We lend to and advise businesses from all walks of life and in all stages of growth. Today's presentation is called Forging the Way Forward, How Entrepreneurs Are Adapting to the Pandemic. Our goal today is to share insights on how the business environment has changed and what entrepreneurs can do to build for the future. With that said, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, BDC's Chief Economist, Pierre Cléroux, to share his insights. Pierre was appointed Vice President, Research and Chief Economist at BDC in 2012. Pierre leads a team of experts who analyze economic data to identify business and sector trends impacting Canadian entrepreneurs. Over his 25-year career as an economist, he has held several influential positions that had a direct impact on entrepreneurs in Canada and abroad. Before joining BDC, Pierre worked for the government of Saudi Arabia as Vice President Business Analyst in the National Industry Clusters Development Program. Previously, Mr. Cléroux was the Quebec Assistant Deputy Minister for Economic Development, Innovation and Export Trade, responsible for the implementation of economic policies and programs to support small and medium-sized businesses and encourage entrepreneurship. He was also a strategic advisor for Montreal International, where he was responsible for attracting foreign investment from India and the Middle East and developing international relationships and partnerships. He holds a Bachelor of Arts and a master's degree in economics from Naval University, as well as an MBA from the MIT Sloan School of Management. Please welcome Pierre Cléroux.
Thank you, Nadine. I'm just going to take some time to share my presentation. So I think you should see my presentation now. So my presentation has two parts. First, I'm going to talk about the economy, how the economy has changed, and also I'm going to talk about the next 12 months. I'm going to start with the world, a little bit about Canada, and also I'm going to focus on New Brunswick. Second part of the presentation is about consumer trends. The pandemic has really changed the game in terms of what consumers are looking for. So I'm going to talk about our latest research on that in the second part of the presentation. I'm going to, the PowerPoint is in English, and I'm going to give most of my presentation in English with some part in French, but I would be very happy to answer your question in both languages. So the world economy, as you can see from this graph, COVID-19 is really having a really hard impact on the world economy, on almost every countries around the world. China is going to be the only major economy with positive growth, then even if the growth is much slower than what we have experienced in China over the last few years. And the reason why China is performing a little bit better is because they have a very large and strong manufacturing sector, which is one of the sector coming back the fastest. So, but other countries like the US, Japan, Germany, Canada are going to experience a contraction of the economy this year between 4 and 7%. Some other countries like France and United Kingdom are going to even have a stronger contraction around 10%. So as you can see, COVID-19 is really having an impact around the world. The good news, though, is world trade is coming back quickly, much faster than it did in 2008, 2009. So that's a sign that the world economy will rebound quicker than what it did during the last recession. The biggest concern for economists at the world level is the number of new cases that we see in major economies. In light blue, you see the the daily new cases per million for France. As you can see, the second wave has been very important, as well as the United Kingdom in red and the United States in dark blue. So these major economies are really hit by the second wave of the virus. So the forecast for the world economy is a contraction of 4% this year and a rebound in 2021 by 5.2%. So by the end of 2021, the world economy should be back to the pre-crisis level. I'm going to talk a bit about the US. As you know, it's our number one trade partner. 75% of Canadian exports are going to the US. It's actually 90% of New Brunswick export going to the United States. So obviously this is a very important country for Canada. And the virus was also has a huge impact on the US economy. The US economy lost 20 million jobs during the lockdown last spring. As the economy reopened at the beginning of the summer, we can see that the number of jobs is increasing, but actually at a slow pace. Almost only half of the job loss in the United States has been recuperated. So this is good, but this is not exceptional. One of the reasons why the economy is coming back a bit slower is on the manufacturing side. Industrial production is still 5% down compared to the level we had in February. Now, the reason is the US government has introduced two programs to help Americans during this difficult period of time. One is a tax rebate, another one is to expand unemployment benefits. The total of these programs is $500 billion, which is a huge amount of money, and it did help Americans in April. So the disposable income in April increased by 15%, which helped the recovery. But they were supposed to have a second program in the fall. Unfortunately, the Republican and the Democrat couldn't agree on a second program before the election. So this is actually not helping the economy. And as you can see, the first program is phasing out, the impact is phasing out on the economy. So as a result, we can see that the consumption in the US is coming back, but it's still below what it was in February. I'm going to show you that it's not the case in Canada and in New Brunswick. So that's explaining why the recovery is happening in the US, but it's a little bit a slower pace. But the biggest worry is the number of cases in the United States. This graph is showing you the new cases per million. In blue, it's the US. In red is Canada. And in yellow is the world. So as you can see, I'm going to talk a bit more about Canada later. You can see in Canada that the red line is increasing, but in the US it's out of control. The number of new cases in the US is really increasing rapidly. The second wave, they have almost 200,000 new cases a day. So that's really, really high. So that's worrisome for the economy because this has a potential to delay the recovery in the United States. It's actually slowing down the recovery of the economy. So the forecast is a contraction of the economy of 4.2% this year, a rebound next year by a little bit more than 3%. So it's going to take some time before we see a full recovery in the United States. It's going to take probably the beginning or the middle of 2022. So we're going to have to wait a little bit more before we see a full recovery. The situation now in Canada. Voici comment on voit la situation au Canada. On voit la situation dans 3 différentes étapes. D'abord, il y a eu le confinement au printemps dernier, lorsque l'économie presque à son entier a été fermée. Il y a eu la reprise initiale au cours de l'été, lorsque l'économie a été réouverte, et là, les entreprises ont été capables d'opérer et de réembaucher un certain nombre de Canadiens. Finalement, il y aura la dernière phase qui va nous ramener à la situation d'avant la crise. Donc, dans les prochaines diapos, je vais vous parler de la phase numéro 2 et de la phase numéro 3. Voici où ce que nous en sommes. Le Canada a perdu 3 millions d'emplois au cours du confinement, mais à la fin du confinement, la création d'emplois a été particulièrement forte au Canada. Donc, nous avons récupéré 80% des emplois perdus. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes à 97% du niveau d'emploi du mois de février. Lorsqu'on regarde par secteur, on voit que plusieurs secteurs ont retourné à la situation d'avant la crise. C'est le cas du secteur financier qui est à 101%. Donc, ça veut dire qu'il y a en fait plus de gens qui travaillent aujourd'hui dans ce secteur-là qu'avant la crise au mois de février. Le secteur de la fabrication est à 99%. Le commerce de détail à 97%. Donc, en général, on est à 97%. Cependant, si vous regardez en bas du graphique, vous voyez qu'il y a des secteurs qui ont plus de difficultés et c'est le cas de tout ce qui est l'hébergement et la restauration qui est à seulement 81%. Comme vous savez, il y a beaucoup de restrictions sur ce secteur-là au Canada. Il y a même certaines villes comme Montréal et Toronto qui ont fermé leurs restaurants. Donc, évidemment, ça a tout un impact sur le retour à l'emploi. Mais si on regarde la reprise initiale au Canada, elle était plus forte qu'on s'attendait et plus forte que dans les autres pays développés comme les États-Unis. Aujourd'hui, nous sommes à 97% du niveau d'emploi d'avant la crise, alors qu'aux États-Unis, ils sont seulement qu'à 93%. Donc, la reprise initiale au Canada, elle était forte, plus forte qu'on s'attendait au début et plus forte que dans d'autres pays développés. Une des raisons pourquoi cette reprise a été forte, c'est la contribution des gouvernements. Le gouvernement fédéral a augmenté ses transferts aux Canadiens de plus de 200 milliards de dollars ou augmenté de 60%. Ça a eu un impact immédiat sur le revenu disponible des Canadiens. Le revenu disponible, c'est l'ensemble des revenus que les Canadiens reçoivent, moins les taxes qu'ils paient à différents gouvernements. Donc, essentiellement, ce sont l'argent que nous avons dans nos poches. Et donc, la situation, ce qui s'est passé, c'est qu'il y a des Canadiens qui ont perdu leur emploi, donc qui ont perdu une partie de leurs revenus. Il y a d'autres Canadiens qui continuent de travailler, mais qui font moins d'heures à cause de la récession. Donc, il y a des Canadiens qui ont perdu une partie de leurs revenus. De l'autre côté, ils ont été compensés par des revenus qui venaient des transferts gouvernementaux. Donc, le net-net, comme on dit, c'est une augmentation du revenu disponible des Canadiens de 11%. Ça va avoir un impact sur la facilité que les Canadiens auront à passer à travers la crise et ça aura un impact sur la relance, notamment sur le commerce de détail, le marché de l'habitation. De plus, comme vous le savez, les taux d'intérêt ont baissé. La Banque du Canada a baissé son taux d'intérêt à presque zéro et il va maintenir leur taux d'intérêt aussi bas au moins jusqu'en 2023. L'impact positif, on le voit sur le marché de l'habitation qui a ralenti au mois d'avril durant le confinement, mais qui s'est bien repris au Canada au cours de l'été. En fait, l'été 2020 a été meilleur que l'été 2019, ce qui est assez surprenant. On pense que la baisse des taux d'intérêt, l'engouement, beaucoup de Canadiens travaillent de la maison, ils veulent acheter des maisons un peu plus grandes. Et il y avait déjà un bon momentum avant la crise. Ça explique pourquoi ce marché-là a explosé littéralement cet été. Mais ça, c'est une bonne nouvelle pour l'économie du Nouveau-Brunswick parce que je vais te montrer un peu plus tard que, par exemple, les ventes du bois d'œuvre, a beaucoup augmenté et c'est dû à l'augmentation du marché de l'habitation au Canada. Deuxièmement, les ventes au détail au Canada sont revenues rapidement à la normale. En fait, sont plus élevées aujourd'hui qu'ils ne l'étaient avant la pandémie. Ils sont plus élevés dans tous les secteurs. On vend davantage de produits électroniques, d'articles de sport, etc. Il y a deux secteurs qui souffrent un peu. C'est les stations-service. Les stations, les gens, évidemment, voyagent moins pour aller travailler au bureau, mais aussi pour les loisirs. Donc, on est en bas de 15% encore. Et le marché, tout le secteur des vêtements, il y a 40% des Canadiens qui travaillent de la maison. Et évidemment, je pense que les gens achètent moins de vêtements et on le voit dans les chiffres. Mais pour le reste, le commerce de détail a repris comme c'était le cas. So the situation in New Brunswick now, this is very interesting. The graph is showing you the rate of active cases of COVID-19 per 100,000 population as November 23rd. So that's only a few days ago. As you can see, the number of cases in New Brunswick is very low compared to the rest of the country. For example, in Manitoba, there's 621 cases by 100,000 people in Manitoba. So that's the highest level in Canada, followed by Alberta, Saskatchewan, British Columbia. The average in Canada is 151 cases. And then Quebec and Ontario follow. But New Brunswick, as you can see, it's much lower than the Canadian average and much lower than most provinces, with the exception of the Atlantic bubble. So this is important because I'm going to show you in the next few slides that because you have less cases in New Brunswick, the impact of COVID-19 is different in New Brunswick. It's actually not as bad as in the rest of the country or in other part of the world. Also, the negative impact of COVID-19 of the economy is not coming from the province, it's coming from export, it's coming from the rest of the world. So this is how I'm going to show you that. First, the level of job in New Brunswick dropped by 50,000 during the spring, but as the initial recovery happened, the level of job came back pretty quickly. However, we can see that it's difficult to go back to the pre-crisis level. So we lost 50,000 jobs, we recuperated 40,000 jobs, but there's about 10,000 jobs missing. And I'm going to show you where they are. So if you look by sectors that are more for the domestic economy of New Brunswick, they're performing quite well. Professional services are at 116% the level they were in February. Retail trade is 104%. There's actually more people working in retail in New Brunswick today than they were in February. I'm going to show you why. Retail trade is performing quite well. In total, New Brunswick is at 98% the level of job than in February. So remember, Canada was at 97%. The US was at 93%. So the performance of New Brunswick is actually better than Canada and better than the United States. Manufacturing is at 96%, a little bit below. And if you look at the bottom of the graph, you will be surprised to see that agriculture is only at 72% of what it was in February. And the reason is our export of farm products is actually really slowing down because of COVID-19. So if we look at the unemployment rate, before the pandemic, the unemployment rate was 8.1%. Now it's 10.1%. So like I said, a large part of the recovery has been happening in New Brunswick, but it's still missing some part. It's still missing 10,000 jobs. If we look at retail sales, it's actually higher today than what it was before the crisis. So the recovery in New Brunswick has been strong. The internal, like if you look at the domestic economy, you can see that, for example, retail is back to the pre-crisis level. And food and accommodation sector is actually performing better in New Brunswick than in the rest of the country. And that's directly related to the number of cases. In other part of the country, governments were forced to close down restaurants. That's the case in Montreal. That's the case in Toronto as well. So as a result, the level of employment in Canada is lower in this sector than in New Brunswick. Same, the housing starts was strong for Canada. Same thing in New Brunswick. We're back to the average of 2018, 2019. So despite the pandemic, people are still confident and they are buying houses, and housing starts continue to be as strong as before the crisis. What is restraining the economy in New Brunswick is not coming from internally, it's coming from outside. So the level of export has slowed down quite a bit. And that's really the reason why the economy is not back to the pre-crisis level. So if we look, the total export is down by 23%. And some sectors are more affected than others. That's the case of oil. Like I show you for Canada, people are not commuting as much and not traveling as much. So gas station sales are down by 15%. That's actually the case everywhere in North America. That's the reason why New Brunswick export of oil is down. So it's going to take some time before people are as mobile and they're using their cars as much as before the crisis. Another sector that is really affected by the North American slowdown is actually frozen food. So for example, frozen potatoes is down by 52%. So New Brunswick export of frozen potatoes are really affected by the fact that restaurants are closed in some part of the country. So when you close restaurants in Toronto, well, you have a negative impact on frozen potatoes in New Brunswick. So that's explaining why the level of job, for example, in agriculture is down. For example, export of farm products is down by 17%. So the COVID-19 impact on North America is actually having a negative impact on New Brunswick. But it's not true for every sector. The food, the wood product manufacturing sales, as you can see from this graph, has really increased. And this is explained by the fact that the housing market in North America has been growing despite the fact that we had a slowdown in the economy. So this is really having a positive impact on wood products manufacturing and also wood product export. The wood product, the lumber export in New Brunswick, it's actually the highest increase among all the other product in New Brunswick. So as you can see, the initial recovery, both in Canada and New Brunswick, has been strong. In New Brunswick, for example, we are at 98% the level of job we had in February. Internally, the economy is performing well. It's just slowed down by the export part of the economy, which is an important part of the economy. So what should we expect for the next 12 months? Well, we expect that the recovery is going to continue, but at a slower pace in Canada. And there's 4 reasons for that. First, the pandemic is not over. Second, consumers remain cautious about spending money. Business investment are down, and some key sectors of our economy is going to take more time to recover. So first, the pandemic is not over. This is the numbers for Canada, the daily new cases per million for Canada. As you can see, the situation has really increased in the last few weeks. The second wave in Canada is actually worse than the first wave. It's not the case for New Brunswick or the other Atlantic provinces, But Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Alberta, British Columbia, all of these provinces have a large number of new cases. So this is going to be important for the last part of the recovery. This has a potential to slow down the recovery. So that's the first reason why we believe that the rest of the recovery is going to take a bit more time. The second reason is Canadians are saving money. The graph that you see is saving rates in Canada, which is really at an historic high. We never saw this kind of number. Well, this is not surprising. There's a lot of uncertainty. So a lot of Canadians are saving money because there's a lot of uncertainty about the virus, but also about the economy. The third reason is on the business side, business investment are down. At BDC, we keep track of business investment intention every quarter. And this is a balance of opinions. So when the number is positive, it means that entrepreneurs are going to invest more this year than the year before. And that was the case in January. We were expecting actually quite a strong year in terms of business investment. But as you can see from the graph, everything turned in April because of the pandemic. So these numbers since April has been negative, even our latest survey in October. So we are going to have less business investment this year than last year, and this is going to limit the growth of the Canadian economy. Finally, some sectors of the economy are going to take more time to recover. This is our forecast by sector. So if we look at the top right part of the graph, you can see sectors that are rebounding the fastest. So pharma, ICT, which is technology, retail, and food manufacturing, actually these sectors are already back to the pre-crisis level. If you look on the other side of the graph, in the yellow zone, you can see sectors that are going to take more time to fully recover. So first, you have all the three sectors that are related to tourism, accommodation, restaurants, air transportation. Actually, these sectors will not fully recover before we have a vaccine. So they're going to be the last sectors probably to recover. But there's also some important sectors that are going to take more time. That's the case of oil and gas and aerospace manufacturing. So these sectors are going to take a bit more time because of the restriction and because of the impact of COVID-19 on our life. So this is our forecast for the next few years. So today we are at the end of this initial recovery period. Like I said, we have been doing quite well in Canada and in New Brunswick. We did actually much better than in the United States, but we're not fully back to normal. We still have some way to go. And the rest of the recovery is going to depend on our ability to control the virus. So we have two scenarios or two forecasts. The first one is what we call our optimistic forecast. So if everything goes well with the second wave and we are not forced to go under another lockdown, and we have a vaccine in 2021, well, we believe the Canadian economy is going to fully recover by the beginning of 2022. That's at the top of the zone that you see there. But if we have difficulties to control the second wave and some part of the country are forced to go into a lockdown, or if we have a third wave after Christmas, and if for some reason there's a delay in the vaccine, well, the full recovery in Canada is going to be delayed. It could be delayed up to 2023. So that's our pessimistic scenario. So today we're still optimistic with all the information we have, with all the analysis we make. We still believe that we're going to control the second wave and we're going to have a vaccine in 2021. So we still believe that by the beginning of 2022, the Canadian economy should be back to the pre-crisis level. So the last part of the presentation is about how the pandemic have changed consumer trends. We did a number of studies with Canadian consumers to understand how the pandemic has changed in behavior, and there's three conclusions. The first one is the online business. The graph that you see is the volume of the online business in Canada per month. So if you look at February, was $1.6 billion. If you look in May, was more than twice as much, $3.9 billion. So in only a few months, the online business more than doubled in Canada. In May, we were under a lockdown, so you could say that's it's because people couldn't, go out and shop. But now, after that, we reopened the economy, and if you look at the last number in September, we're still twice as much at what the level was in February, even if the economy is fully open. Actually, September numbers is higher than Christmas 2019. So that's why the title is, for the online business, it's Christmas every month. So what's happening? Well, more and more Canadians want to shop online. According to our survey with Canadian consumers, 32% of Canadians are saying they are going to buy more online in the next 12 to 18 months. And if you look at Canadians who have more revenue, more than $100,000 revenue, well, the ratio is 38%. Many Canadians bought something online different for the first time during the pandemic, and they liked it. They saw the benefits of doing that. So actually, the pandemic has accelerated this trend. The online business has been around for about 10 years. But the pandemic has really changed the game, has really accelerated this trend. And we believe we're not going to go back to the pre-crisis level. We're just going to continue to increase this trend. So this is important for business to understand because there's a lot of action, there's a lot of benefits of doing business online. Actually, according to our survey, entrepreneurs realize that. And one of the places they're going to invest in the next 12 months is to improve their online presence. The second trend that we see is Canadians want to buy more locally. They want to have a positive impact on their community. They realize that the economy is slowing down and it's difficult for many businesses in Canada. So 44% of Canadians are saying they were going to buy more locally in the next 12 to 18 months. 23% are ready to pay a premium for Canadian products. So this is an important trend as well. You have probably seen over the last few months, many businesses are marketing themselves as Canadian businesses. They understand that's what Canadians are looking for. They're looking to buy more locally, or at least from Canadian businesses. Finally, the last trend, which is totally new but not surprising, Canadians are very cautious about their health. 39% of Canadians say high sanitary standards have become a selection criteria when choosing a product or a company. So obviously this is a new trend because of the virus. But this is very important for Canadians. And I know many Canadian businesses have spent money, a lot of money and energy to make sure that their clients and their employees are safe. And that's exactly what Canadians are looking for. So our business environment has changed over the last 6 months. Canadians are looking to buy more and more online. They're looking for local products to have a positive impact on their community. And they want to feel safe when they go to a shopping mall, a restaurant, or a store. So in conclusion, the Canadian economy recovery is well on the way. The initial recovery in Canada and in New Brunswick has been stronger than what we expected. Like in New Brunswick, we are at 98% the level of job that we were in February. However, we're not done yet. Like for example, in New Brunswick, we're 10,000 jobs missing compared to February. The rest of the recovery is going to happen in the next 12 to 18 months. But all this will depend on the number of cases, how we'll be able to control the number of cases we have in Canada and in North America, because our export are an important part of the full recovery. We're still optimistic. We still believe we're going to have a vaccine in 2021 and we will control the second wave. So we still believe that the full recovery is going to happen at the beginning of 2022. So I'm going to stop here and I will welcome your questions in both languages.
Thank you very much, Pierre. We have hosted a lot of presentations over the last 9 months, but I have to say yours today was one of the clearest I've seen, with some really great information. And I was very quickly scribbling down some of your highlights. And so I'm hoping that you might allow us to receive a copy of the presentation that we could share with our registrants.
Definitely, we'll do that. We'll send you after the presentation.
Perfect. I also must apologize because I told everyone to use the chat function for their questions, and actually we're using the Q&A function, which is right next to it. So
Okay.
please post your questions in there. But we do have some that were sent to us, so I'll start off with those. And one of the questions right off the bat is, and you covered this, I guess, throughout the presentation, but somebody's wondering how long we are going to have to wait to return to what we might call the old normal, or will we ever get to the old normal, or are there some fundamental changes that have happened because of COVID?
Well, it will going to depend on how we can manage this virus, and the vaccine obviously is going to be very, very important. Experts are saying that we'll have access in Canada to a vaccine in 2021. So that's the reason why our forecast is, if everything goes well, we believe that the beginning of 2022, we should be back to the level of activities we had before the crisis. But having said that, the economy is going to be different. And during the pandemic has changed the game in some areas. So the economy will never be the same exactly.
Okay. Somebody asked the question, are businesses still spending money on marketing, or is this been sort of a fallow period when I'm going to hold that cash close and maybe spend it later?
Well, actually, they're still spending money on marketing, but they're spending it differently. Our research with businesses is showing that business investment are going to be lower this year, except in one area, which is in technology. Businesses are investing in technology to get more efficient, to reduce their costs. Over the last few years, the economy has been pretty good. So when the economy is good, you focus on your revenue. You don't focus so much on your costs because you're making money. When the economy slows down, well, you really focus on your costs. And businesses are investing right now to reduce their costs. They're also investing to be more present online. And this is where they're spending their marketing dollar right now. They realize that the online business is really increasing. And according to our research, a lot of businesses who are already online, they are investing into marketing online.
Yeah, that was a key takeaway for me, was the sort of dramatic increase in online shopping throughout the year, and I'm anxious to see the November and December stats, as which traditionally is a heavy spending season for consumers. So if you had some advice for people on the call today, would it be to focus what spending you do have on trying to become more of a digital online presence?
Definitely. And I think, we not only online business has more than doubled in Canada, but according to our research with consumers, this is not going to stop. This is just going to continue. Like, we were surprised, many Canadians bought something online for the first time during the pandemic, and they liked it. 80% of them, the one who tried the online business for the first time, said they would continue to do that. For two reasons. First, because they saw the benefits of it. Also because of the virus. Some people prefer the safety of buying over their computer than going to a store or to a shopping mall. So the online business is here to stay, and it's going just to continue to accelerate. So businesses, if they want to have success in the future, they will have to be present online.
Mm-hmm. I guess there are certain sectors, and one of your slides showed this, that will be the slowest to recover. And we're talking, if you own a travel agency, if you own a hotel, restaurants perhaps, and somebody mentioned events, if you're in the event planning business, those sort of sectors, even with a digital presence, it may still be difficult for them to rebound. Is there anything they should be doing now?
Well, you're perfectly right. It's going to take more time, and I think, frankly, we'll need a vaccine before these sectors are going back to normal. So, two things that people can do. First, to try to look at how to diversify their offering. It's possible in some sectors to sell more online, or to change. For example, I know a lot of people organize events. Now they organize webinars. They help the organization to organize video to talk to their employees, or webinars to talk to their clients. So that's the first thing. Second is to prepare for the rebound, because these sectors are going to rebound when we have a vaccine. So to get ready for the rebound that is going to happen.
Maybe this is a good time for me to mention to some of our members who are on the call, starting next year, we're actually going to charge a small fee for online content because we feel there is a value to it. It's been free for everyone this year because people just didn't have the cash, but maybe it's time to sort of pivot to that kind of business model. One other question I have, it's been posted, is since like a smaller group or subset of sectors have been particularly hard hit by COVID, are we in a true recession, or is this something different?
Well, we were in recession during the second quarter. The contraction was very severe. Actually, for the first and second quarter, we had a contraction. The third quarter was quite positive. The last quarter of this year should be positive, but slightly positive. So we are, if you look at the definition, technically we are getting out of the recession right now. And we believe that 2021, we will be in a positive zone. So we will continue to grow. But like I explained, growth is going to be slow because some sectors are lagging and the pandemic is not over yet. So 2021 is going to be slow growth, and as we control the virus and we have the vaccine, the growth is going to accelerate.
Somebody's posted a good question about the level of public sector support through this, which we know has been needed, but we'll have to pay the piper at some point. After billions and billions being spent, eventually there will have to be some taxation, you would assume, to balance the books again. Might that hamper a full recovery?
Yes, but I think government will have a different strategy, and people are perfectly right by saying that the level of debt in Canada is going to be much higher. There's no doubt about that. But this one good news is our starting point was good in Canada. Our debt to GDP ratio was the lowest among the G7, so the biggest economy in the world. So still today, after we spend a lot of money, we're still at the bottom with Germany. We have the lowest with Germany. So we're still in a good position. So that's a good news. But people are right. We have to repay at one point. But I think the strategy is going to be different than in the past. Instead of increasing taxes that will slow down the economy, I think government will take more time to reach a balanced budget. So probably a decade, because the debt is going to be so important. So I'm not too worried about tax increase, because I think this time around, governments is going to take another choice, and they're going to take more time and let the growth of the economy to reduce the debt and the deficit.
I'd like to ask you a question about our precious Atlantic bubble that burst this week. But we had a pretty good run of about 4.5 months where, and your numbers showed it, our case numbers were low and continue to be relatively low to the rest of the country. But, if you're running the airport or maybe hotels, you may think there was a bit of a price to pay for keeping more people outside the region. Do you think the bubble was a success from both a public health and an economic perspective?
I'm not a health expert, so I'm going to leave that comment to somebody else. But on the economic side, I think it was a great success because the economy actually is performing better. The recovery in New Brunswick has been stronger than in the rest of the country. Just because when you control the number of cases, you're not forced to close part of the economy that other provinces. To give you an example is restaurants. Restaurants are still open in New Brunswick, although there's some restrictions, But restaurants are closed now in Quebec. They're closed in Toronto. They're closed in Alberta. They're closed in many parts of their country. So, and this has a huge impact on the economy because there's a lot of jobs in that sector. So when you look at what is very interesting about the New Brunswick economy right now is the everything that is internal to New Brunswick is back to normal. Retail, housing market. What is missing is coming from outside the province. Export are still down because COVID-19 is having a huge impact in North America. So, for example, your exportation of French fries are down by 50% because restaurants in other parts of North America are closed. So, in terms of the economy, I think the bubble was a success.
Okay. And speaking of exports, and you mentioned that I think 90% of New Brunswick exports head to the United States. How do you see our economic and trade relationship with the U.S. changing with a new administration, which at some point in time will take over there?
Well, I think it's going to be better for two reasons. The first one is I think Mr. Biden is going to be different with his friends, country friends. For example, Canada, we are a friend of the United States. Remember Mr. Trump was quick to impose tariff on aluminum, on steel. It was really difficult to negotiate with our free trade agreement. I think Mr. Biden is going to be really different and is going to be much more predictable. So this is going to be good. It's going to reduce the uncertainty in the economy. The second reason, and I'm not sure if that will happen, Mr. Biden in his program, he wants to increase business tax in the United States. I'm not sure if we will be able to do it because it will need the support of the Senate to do it. And as we know, it's not sure that the Senate is going to be Democrat. But if he's able to do it, to increase taxes on business in the United States, it will put will make our Canadian businesses more competitive. So that's the second reason why I think Mr. Biden is going to be helpful for Canadian businesses.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't see any other questions popping up. So I think with that, folks, we'll draw things to a close. I would like to thank all of you for attending today and for your questions. J'aimerais aussi remercier Nadine et toute l'équipe de la BDC à Moncton et de la région Atlantique pour leur appui. And of course, I would especially like to thank you, Pierre, for informing us, educating us on what's happening now and maybe the path forward and how long that path may be. But I think we can agree there is a path. And if we continue to work together and support each other, we'll make it through to some brighter days. So with that, thank you, everyone. Merci et bonne journée.
Thank you. Merci.